Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Felicia and I am a knitter, crocheter, general fiber enthusiast living in Washington, D.C. And this is my little corner of the internet where I share with you mainly knitting, but like all of the things that I'm into at the moment. Right now it happens to be knitting, so that's what I'm sharing. If this is your first time here, welcome. I hope you enjoy the content. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for taking the time to spend a little time with me today. I have a lot to share today, two really exciting things that I want to talk about and a few acquisitions for upcoming projects. So I'm really excited to start sharing. So I'm going to start with my finished object. I only have one, and I don't say only to be like self-deprecating. It's just that there's a singular item. So I want to share that with you. But first, really quickly, I want to show you what I have on today. This is the Hat Dana by Denise Byron. It is a really simple pattern. You actually start it here at the bottom, work your way up, and then you join in the round with this ribbing. I know this gray on gray is kind of hard to see, but it has a really pretty cable detail. I will link to the pattern below. This is one of my favorite fall accessories. It's so easy to put on. It doesn't look like a hand knit item, even though it is, and it's really easy to wear, and it keeps my neck warm. Usually I wear it like I'm wearing it today, or just have on like a simple sweatshirt and a jacket. This is one of my favorite jackets of all time, and then I'll just throw this on to keep my neck warm, and it's amazing. I think I made this out of a Barocco yarn, I want to say. I don't exactly remember, but it's really soft. It's a little prickly. This yarn is not the softest for next to skin, but I do want to make another one of these in either like a really fun neon color or something that's just like a pop of color. I don't know what color yet, but I love this and I wear it all the time. So I threw it on today so that I could have something hand knit, but not too hot to wear. So with that being said, we're going to get into actually, I'm going to start with my whip. Well, with one of my whips, and then a finished object, and then another whip, if that's okay. It's my show. I can do whatever. But whip, I have talked about this project pretty much all year on this channel, but I am working on my third half and half triangles wrap. I have finished the first color, which is red kiln, and I have started on the second color, which I think is poppy red or red poppy. I don't know. I'll link it below. This is the color. This is pretty true to color. Yeah, this is the color. It's a really bright red. And this one, this is the contrast between the two colors. I really like this color combination. I talked a lot more about it on my last episode. This has kind of taken a back seat over the last probably week or so, and you'll see why in a moment. But I really like this project. It's great for on the go. Even at this size, it's pretty large now. But even at this size, it's a great on the go project because I can just pull it out, whip out a couple of rows, and it's at the stage where it's growing pretty quickly. And I'm excited. I think this will be done by Christmas for sure. I wanted to have it done by Thanksgiving, but it will definitely be done by Christmas. I will take this with me when I'm traveling for Thanksgiving. And so I know this is going to get a lot of work on the plane and when I'm home for that holiday. So expect to see this growing, and it is right now living in my Plystra bag. I've talked about this bag a ton on this channel as well. So I love it. It's beautiful. And as you can see, usually at home, I just keep it kind of folded down because sometimes the yarn can get caught in the teeth of the zipper. It's a pretty large zipper, so the yarn can actually get caught in it. So I just fold it down like this, and then I don't have to worry about that. So that's one whip. We can get that out of the way. Now onto a finished object. So this is my bright sweater by Junko Okamoto. And I'm gonna bring it in so you can see the detail on the neckline across here. And then it's got this beautiful cable and ribbing detail down the sleeve. If you want to see what this looks like on me, I have finished object photos that I posted on my Instagram, so I will link to that below so that you can go and check it out. But I love, love, love this sweater. So I want to talk a little bit about it because it is a little bit of a challenging knit, but I do think that for either, you know, a really sort of excited beginner or somebody looking to do maybe their third or fourth sweater project, this would be a great sweater. So I knit this in the recommended yarn, which is this yarn here. It is a Romanian yarn, Romanian wool. And I think I used, they come in 50-gram hanks. And let me see, I used 1, 2, 3, about 375 grams of this yarn to make this particular pattern. So the pattern comes in one size only, which is a choice, but I think that you can definitely size up or size down your needles to kind of achieve a more structured fit without changing any of the counts for the pattern. So that's an option. I knit it with the recommended yarn on the recommended needles, and I got the size that I was looking for. I haven't measured it to see exactly what the dimensions are or how close I came to matching the recommended dimensions for the recommended schematic for the pattern. But I will say that, you know, it fits me the way that I want it to fit. So in terms of the yarn itself, it has and it's kind of hard to see it here, but it has a thick and thin quality. I'll try to, I don't know if that even did anything for you, but it has a thick and thin quality to it. And so I found that my stitches are very uneven. And I had hoped that that would sort of block out. And I did my best when I blocked it to kind of zhuzh it and kind of manipulate the stitches to kind of make them more even. But it wasn't super effective. So I'll try to, there you can see. But the stitches just aren't super duper even. And I don't know if that was me or a product of the yarn or a combination of both, but it looks really great in the textured portions of the pattern, but on the straight stockinette portions of the pattern, it's just not great. So that's something to keep in mind. That being said, I really do love this yarn. It is definitely tactile, or rustic, as people may be inclined to say. It's definitely a more rustic yarn. It's more tactile. I can wear this next to skin. I wore it next to skin when I took my finished object photos, and I don't anticipate there being any problems with itchiness for my skin, and I have fairly sensitive skin. But if it's a yarn that you're interested in using, I would definitely recommend, you know, maybe buying one hank. It's relatively affordable for what it is. I would buy one hank, knit up a swatch, wash, block it, and put it next to your skin and see how it feels on your skin. But I love it. I blocked mine with Tuft Woolens. So I think that helped to soften it up a little bit, and I'm really excited to wear this. It's really, really warm, this sweater, as well as the temperature outside. So I'm not quite ready to wear this, but I am really, really excited to have this all finished. The only modification that I made was to the neckline. So I think the pattern has you knit and then do ribbing so that you end up with something kind of like the sleeve where you have this rolled effect. I didn't really like that. So I folded over I did a fold over collar. And to achieve this, what I did is I did a provisional cast on onto a spare needle. And then I knit the ribbing the length that I wanted it, folded it over, and then picked up the stitches and knit two together. And that just creates a stretchier, what's the word I'm looking for? Join. It creates a stretchier join between so you don't have like a cast on edge that can be a little bit more rigid. It's very, very stretchy. What I would change is I would have done the ribbing. I should have gone down maybe 2 needle sizes to do the ribbing. The ribbing flares out just a little bit more than I would want it to. I want it to be a little bit more cinched in, but otherwise it fits great and it gives kind of a mock turtleneck without having the roll over hem, which I did not entirely love. Other than that, I didn't make any other modifications. I knit it to the exact length. I think I did extra sleeve decreases. I don't know if I have longer arms than the designer, but I just did extra sleeve decreases until I got to the length that I wanted for the sleeve. So, oh, I thought my camera stopped. So that is the bright sweater. There was something else I wanted to say about this pattern. Oh, the chart. Okay, so this pattern down the sleeve is charted. And it was my first time working with a pattern chart, not a color work chart, but a pattern chart. And what I really enjoyed about this particular pattern is that the chart is not very, very long. It was a little confusing when I had to pick back up for the sleeves to figure out where I was in the chart. But it's a fairly easy chart to read, both in your knitting and the actual chart. But what I enjoyed the most is that the instructions for the chart are also written out. So I use that as kind of training wheels to allow myself to get more comfortable with the actual reading of the chart. And, you know, about halfway through the sleeve, I didn't need the chart itself and I didn't need the pattern. I could just do it off of memory because I could read my knitting and I knew what was coming up. And the repeats are very, very simple. What I will say is that these cluster stitches, let me show these in the neckline. These cluster stitches take a long time. There's no cheat. It's not like cabling where you can cable without a cable needle or figure out some other hack. You have to use a cable needle to do them. There are some parts of the pattern where you're doing, 4 in one row, or, a high number in one row. And there's just really no way around the clusters. They're beautiful. They're absolutely stunning, but they were a nightmare to get done. And the sleeves took what seemed like forever to get done because of these cluster stitches. But now that it's done, I love it. And I'm so excited to wear it. The color of the yarn is a little yellow. I thought it was going to be more cream, but it comes off a little bit yellow. This is kind of true to tone, which I don't love, but I like the yarn and I like it on this pattern. So I'm excited about that. I had someone on Instagram send me a message and I can't remember who it is. So if you're watching, I'm sorry for forgetting. Charge it to my head and not to my heart. But she was saying that she wanted to knit one in, I think like a green color. And I think that would be so stunning. I think you could do this pattern in any yarn as long as it's not heavily speckled or variegated, because I think that would take away from the stitch detail. But I think like a rich plum or, a hunter green one would be stunning. It would be absolutely stunning. So I don't know that I will be knitting another one of these, but for anybody thinking about knitting this pattern, if you don't want to do it in the recommended yarn, then I recommend a fairly solid yarn with zero, like a very tonal yarn, nothing speckled, nothing variegated, anything like that, so that you can really, focus in on the details of the sweater, which is what is kind of the drawing attraction to this particular sweater. So my bright sweater by Junko Okamoto. I'm obsessed with this. I'm so excited to get a chance to wear this. Okay, now on to my whip. If you have been following me on Instagram, you have seen me talking about this particular pattern. And I think I talked about it on the last episode too, because I wanted to knit this pattern, but I wanted to knit it in the colorway that's actually in the pattern. And there weren't kits available at the time, so instead I cast on the bright sweater because I've just been craving something more substantial to work on. So when I started this channel, I had the tagline of like, you know, following my journey to becoming a more prolific knitter. And I am still on this journey to become more prolific, but I had to reassess for myself what it meant to be prolific. And I think a lot of times in the knitting community, it's about productivity, right? Like coming on here every 2 weeks with a new sweater or new pair of socks or new finished object and like banging out your knitting. And I think that is one way to be really prolific. For me, being prolific is about creating things with my hands that it's almost unbelievable, right? That a person made that. I want my hand knit wardrobe to be unique and special and something that you can't just go to a store and buy. And while I think there's room and need for basic, and I mean basic in the plain meaning sense, right? Like I think that there's a need for basics in the knitting community. People who want to create wardrobe staples. I want to create things that are spectacular, things that are living art, that are not like something that I could otherwise go out and buy for a fraction of the cost or even for the same cost but without the same amount of time. I want things that I enjoy knitting, which is why I love the bright sweater. It was complicated, but the right amount of complication, and it was intriguing, and I was learning new things, and I was picking up new knitting habits, and that is what I think is turning me into this more prolific knitter. That being said, last year around this time, Pom Pom came out with this, it's 35, Pom Pom number 35. And this was the cover sweater. It's the Foxthoughts sweater by Hiroko Payne. And when I first picked up this magazine, I was actually not attracted to the Foxthoughts sweater at all. I actually wanted to make this kinship shawl, which is what I was attracted to and why I purchased the magazine. And I love Aimee from Aimee and her yarn and everything. So I wasn't initially attracted to the Foxthoughts pullover. And this has been sitting on my coffee table for weeks, literally since I got it. And I had been looking at this cover. And the more I looked at it, the more I wanted this sweater. But there was something about it that I couldn't quite wrap my mind around, something about it that I didn't like. And I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about my plans to work around that in a minute. But I kept looking at it. And then maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I decided that I wanted to make this sweater. And I went onto Aimee's website, and the kits for this colorway, the cover version, were sold out. She had kits for this version, which is the green, which I really love. And she had kits for I think there's like a Grello version, I think is the way that it is described. And so I put my name on the notify me list for this pattern. And here's some more photos so you can see. So I put my name on the notify me list for my size. They didn't have my size. It never came back in stock. So eventually I said, okay, I'm going to order the main body color because I just was kind of itching to start to have the pieces. So I ordered the main body color, which is Helix in the shade Undergrowth. This color is so beautiful. It's such a dynamic color. It's kind of a muddy brown, but it has like purple and green, which are my 2 favorite colors. And I don't know, the color is just very, very dynamic. And you're going to see in a moment how it plays with the other colors, but it's beautiful. So I had posted about how much I really wanted this kit, and Aimee from Lobby Anime was like, you know, be on the lookout. There's going to be some kits coming up. Keep a lookout, keep a lookout. So then I became even more obsessed with trying to get a kit. And one day I went on the website just checking as I frequent. Okay, camera troubles, but I'm back. So I checked the website and they had a kit in stock, one kit in stock in a size that is larger than the size that I'm knitting. And I immediately put it in my cart and checked out before it went away. And then I spent the next like week terrified that it was some kind of mistake. They only had it in, I think they had it in like a size 8. And I was terrified that it was some sort of mistake because I thought it was really odd to have a larger size in a kit but not have a smaller sizes in a kit. Well, the kit showed up in my mail and I'm going to show you. This is kind of a mess. Some of the yarn is actually attached to my sweater. Let me move this. Okay. And these are all the colors for the yoke. So you have to buy the yoke and the main body yarn separately. So these are the colors for the yoke. And I was so excited. I was so excited. I was still in the midst of working on my bright sweater, and I knew that if I started on this sweater, I would never finish the bright sweater. So I finished the bright sweater. I swatched for this. I wound up all of the yarn, and I didn't quite know what I was going to do in terms of yarn management because there are, I think, like 12 or 13 colors for the yoke. And some of the colors look the same, like this yarn and this yarn are 2 different numbers, 2 different letters in the pattern, but they look very similar to the eye. The same with like, these are 3 different colors in the pattern, but to the eye, you know, you're like looking for a seafoamy green. So what I decided to do is and you're probably not going to be able to see this very well, but inside, try to see if I can, nope, you can't see it. Inside the label, inside of the yarn, I have the label, and then I just have a letter that corresponds to the letter that's assigned in the pattern. And then on my color chart, I have written down what each of the colors are. It's kind of clear, there we go. I have written down what each of the colors are, and so that when I have to refer to the color chart, I know exactly which colors, and I'm getting more and more familiar with which colors are which by eyesight. So I've done all this talking. Let me show you where I am in the pattern. Not super far. Find back. Okay. So this is as far as I have gotten in the color work. I just cast this on yesterday. Let me not drop any stitches. And, oops, hold it please. Okay. I just cast this on yesterday and I need to actually move up to the bigger size needle. But when I'm doing color work, I do kind of like to work on a slightly smaller needle. In general, when I'm working circular, I like to have the needle be a little bit smaller. But so let me pull it this way. Okay. Now it's even more bunched up, but you can see the color work pattern there. It's so beautiful. And I had realized that I think Jackie at Cady Jack's Knits had made one of these. So I went back and watched a couple of old episodes. I think I just like missed some episodes. So I missed where she had brought up working on this pattern. But one thing that she talked about, and I'll show you my floats. Hopefully I can do this without, there are my floats. Okay. So one thing that had come up that I was thinking about was what I was going to do to manage all of the ends. There are 13 colors, you're marling. I'll talk about that in a minute. But what I decided to do is, because this is non-superwash yarn, I am just spit splicing the yarn ends together. So I won't have I'll have minimal ends to weave in. Right now I just have 2 ends to weave in, and then I'll have, you know, ends at the bottom of the color work to weave in. So yeah, I'm really excited to keep working on this. I am now, the color work portion is a majority of the entirety of the yoke, and it's so addicting. It's such a good chart, and it's just been really, really fun. And that was the kind of challenge that I needed at this point in time. So I have my more complicated project, and then I have my half and half wrap when I'm in meetings and I just need something to keep my hands going. This is not for meetings. So yarn management, like I said, without giving away anything on the chart, you're holding 2 strands of lace weight double to get fingering weight for this project. So when you're doing the color work, there are times when you are working with, you know, 2, 3, 4 balls of yarn, because you could be marling together 2 colors, and then 2 colors for your main color, 2 colors for your contrast color. So it's just a lot of moving pieces to keep up with, as opposed to, you know, a 2-color color work project, or even a 3-color color work project where you only have where you're only working with 1 or 2 balls at a time. You're working with upwards of 4 balls of yarn at a time. So this is definitely like a sit still, be still type of project to work on. This is also the first project that I've done where you're doing increases like in your actual color work. So that has been a really interesting process to learn and sort of figure out. A really fun process, but interesting nonetheless. And I'm trying to think what else. So I think that's pretty much it for what I have sort of picked up from this pattern so far. In terms of modifications, the first modification I made is that I did do a fold over collar, double thick collar. And I did it the same way that I did it for the bright sweater. I just did a provisional cast on to a spare needle. I prefer doing that versus doing it to yarn or you know, any other method. And I can link to the video tutorial that I used to do that, but it's really, really simple. It's a really, really easy cast on. So I did a provisional cast on to a spare needle. I cast on, I did the ribbing, double the length, folded it over, knit it together, and then proceeded with the rest of the pattern. I have had to go down, I went down 2 needle sizes for the color work, and I'm knitting a size 4, which should net a 45-inch circumference, but I'm hoping to land somewhere closer to 43 inches, which is why I went down a needle size. I got gauge with the recommended needle, but I didn't love the way the fabric looked, and I knew that I wanted to get something a little bit smaller. So I went down a needle size. So that's where this is so far. I will be taking this with me when I travel, so we're gonna see how that works out. I'm a little nervous that it might be a calamity, but I'm gonna do it anyway, because I will have time where I can sit down and concentrate on this. So I will be taking this with me when I go home, and hopefully I can get some more of the color work done. The other thing, and the thing that held me up the most about this pattern, and watching Jackie from Cady Jack's Knits and a couple of other people, I've seen this modification on Ravelry. It's hard to tell. Yeah, it's hard to tell from this photo, but the color work portion, the sleeves don't split until after the color work portion. And my concern for that is that having a larger bust, it is going to be too far down, and it's going to basically have me be like double wide in this area, which I don't find to be particularly flattering. The other thing is I don't love super dropped like arms, which is why I've never really been into like the swancho trend. I did not like that at all. So what I have decided to do, and I think they actually do this in the cardigan, but I could be wrong. And it's probably less of an issue in the cardigan. But anyway, I'm going to split for this sleeve somewhere in the color work. I'm going to just keep knitting and see where it kind of makes sense. I think for Jackie's, she split like after this sort of floral part. I'm just going to kind of see where it naturally makes sense to break. But I am going to split for the sleeves early in the color work. And a couple of other people on Ravelry have done it. And I just like the effect a lot more. I did it with my... It's a Caitlin Hunter pattern. I wore it on an episode. But the Tecumseh, I split for the sleeves early with that. It was a lot easier because there were breaks in the color work. But... it's a bridge that I'm going to cross when I get to it, and we'll figure out what we're going to do. The other thing is I'm going to eliminate the color work on the sleeves. I'm not a huge fan of color work on sleeves in general. I don't love that. So I'm going to eliminate the color work there. And then in the pattern, they have you do some body shaping to keep it from being such a boxy fit. I'm going to eliminate that body shaping and either keep it kind of boxy or figure out how to cinch it in a little bit at the waist, and I'm going to crop it. It's a little long. I don't remember how long it's supposed to be based on the schematic. Let's see. Yeah, so you're supposed to knit anywhere from, I think for my size, I would have to do 14.5 inches beneath the underarm split. And it might still end up being that much if I split for the underarms early, but I don't want it to be long and boxy. And sorry, I keep flipping in the, I'm trying to see if I can show, but on this one, you can kind of see it. It's just kind of long and boxy, and I want it kind of cropped a little bit more. So those are the modifications that I'm planning on making to this. But if you want to keep up with the progress of this, I will be posting sort of progress shots and updates on my Instagram. And this might actually be the project that gets me to make a Ravelry finished object, whatever they're called, project page on Ravelry. I doubt it, but we'll see. Yeah. Oh, another thing, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm in between work meetings, so my mind is a little fried from being on Zoom all day. But one thing, and I'm sure that you all have seen this tip 1,000 times, so you're going to see it 1,001 from me. When you are working color work, make sure that you use markers in between each repeat of the color work chart. I have had a couple of instances where I have miscounted or I've messed up the chart, but I only messed it up in the area of the stitches. So I only had to tink back, a couple of stitches as opposed to getting to the end of the row. And for some of them, I would have been off like 8 or 9 stitches. So this is really, really helpful, a really, really helpful tip. I use, it's probably hard to see in there, but I use these hexagonal stitch markers. I love these. I will link to the ones that I purchased. I got mine from a place called stunningstring.com, and I have the bronze small ones, and I think I bought like they were fairly inexpensive, so I bought multiple packs to get to the number that I have. But I love these. I use them on all of my projects. I have them on my half and half wrap. I have them here. So you need a lot of stitch markers for this. You also need a beginning of round marker. Mine is this ring marker. Let me see. Extra one. Mine is this ring marker. There you go. From Thread and Maple. I bought this at Fiber Space, a local yarn store in my area. And then you need a back of round marker for this as well. And I'm just using a marker, a raindrop marker from Firefly Notes, which, as you know, is one of my favorite stitch marker brands. So yeah, this is my Foxthoughts. Hopefully the next time I podcast, which I hope to do another one before the end of the year, I will have more progress to show on this. But I love it so far. The yarn is amazing. Even though it's not superwash, it's so soft, and I love working with it. I'm beyond obsessed with that. So I have just a couple of like acquisitions that I want to share, and then I'll be on my way and I'll let you go on your way. So I think I've talked about this before. I think I talked about it on the last episode. I can't remember, but I'm in the Magpie Fiber Society. I love Magpie Fibers. It is relatively local to me. It's based out of Frederick, Maryland, which is not very far from me here in DC, and I love their yarn. It's one of the few yarn dyers, not few, it's one of the handful of yarn dyers that I go to whenever I'm starting a project as sort of my baseline. Magpie Fibers is one. I love Neighborhood Fiber Company, and we all know that I love Lobby and Aimee. So those are kind of my three go-tos for just staple yarns. So, and now Purl Soho. I really do love Purl Soho yarn. So I saw that they were reopening their fiber society. I think this was in June. Maybe it was in June. So I joined the Fiber Society. It is an investment. It was not cheap at all. But I love their yarn and I love their color sense. They very rarely have colors that I don't enjoy. And so that made me feel very comfortable joining the Fiber Society. And it's not a surprise per se. You do get to pick if you're going to do variegated or speckled or anything like that. And you get to see the colors before. So if you really love it and you know you want to make a sweater out of it, you can order extra skeins of yarn. So this is the colorway that came for, I think this is September and October and November. I don't know. Anyway, so I got 2 skeins of this. This is Swanky Sock. So it's an 80-10-10, 80% merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. It's so squishy. I think this is beautiful. I would love to use this for a color work project where maybe I bring in like a plum color or something for the color work. I don't quite know yet, but this is 400 yards. So I would probably just need 1 more skein of a contrasting color to do a sweater. But I love this, and they usually come with extra treats and surprises, and this month it was a stitch marker from Firefly Notes, which I love. I mentioned on the last episode that Firefly Notes has a advent calendar, and I think that Magpie Fiber is carrying that advent calendar. It's a stitch marker advent. So if you were looking for that and couldn't find it before, I will link to that below. And I'm sharing this because Magpie Fibers is going to be opening up their Fiber Society again if you want to join. So if it's something you're interested in and you enjoy the colors, and I think I showed the colors I got last month, I can't remember, but they did Swanky BK for the last box, and that was really, really beautiful. So I'm really, really excited to have these, and I'm starting to think about a project that I can use these in, because I don't know that I would make socks out of this yarn, but I think it would be really, really great for a sweater. I want it super duper close to my skin. And I have, oh, hold on, I have to go get it. Hold, please. Okay, so a few months ago, I was on Instagram, as one is, and I saw Darcy from Darcy Does It post about, she has a Fiber Society yarn club that features dyers of color. And it's amazing. And she was talking about this dyer, Treehouse Knits, and I went and looked on her page, and her yarns were absolutely beautiful, absolutely stunning. And she was talking about a Coco collection, and I love Coco, the movie Coco, the Disney Pixar movie Coco. Love that movie. And so her and Darcy did an Instagram live, and they were talking about the colors, and it was a pre-order, and I loved the colors. And I was torn. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. Hadn't really decided, you know, if I wanted to, what yarns I wanted, because there were so many good colors. And I do knit socks and I do knit accessories, but I'm usually more of a garment knitter. So I know that for these things, I'm buying large quantities of yarn. And then I saw Adela from Lola Bean Yarn Co. post that she had placed an order. And I was like, oh, expletive deleted. This yarn is going to sell out. I need to get it. So I didn't panic buy, but I did then go and pick out all of the colors that I wanted. So I recently got this order in, and I'm going to show you what I got. I also shared a little bit of this on my Instagram, but I've been thinking about potential projects for them. So I'm going to talk about the yarn that I got and maybe some potential projects. So sorry for the crinkling. Okay. So the first thing that I got was this sock kit, and this is the Remember Me sock kit, and I think this is Coco's Shawl as the contrast color. I don't necessarily know that I will use this for socks. This color is enough for me to do color work with, and this is enough for me to do, you know, a collar or cuffs of a sweater. I might make it into socks, but I use so little yarn for socks that the 100-gram, and this is actually 120 grams. No, I think it's a 100-gram regular and a 20-gram mini. This is enough for me to make like 3 pairs of socks. So I don't know, but it was so beautiful. And her colors are stunning. I mean, just like, look at that. And I'm not huge into like speckles or variegated yarns. I like them and I respect what it takes to achieve that. But this is just so, it's so good. It's so good. So I ordered one of those. And then I got 2 or 3 colors. I don't really remember, but we're gonna start. So I ordered a sweater's quantity of the Alabrije, and it is this beautiful caramel brown. It has so much depth of color. It is a tonal, but it does, I don't know if it's where the dye breaks or what, but it's got these like rich, almost mahogany like tones to it so that it's not flat. It's really, really a dynamic color. And I also picked up a sweater's quantity of the Surrey lace in Alabrije as well. I'm thinking of making the Magnolia Bloom by Camilla Vlad in this color. I think this would be beautiful as a magnolia, as a Magnolia Bloom. I don't know if I have quite enough yardage, but I think I do, because I think for the Magnolia Bloom you hold fingering weight double with mohair. I need to double check. I have the pattern, but I think this would be really, really beautiful as a Magnolia Bloom. So I bought Alabrije. Then the other color that I got is called Antique Vase, and it is this beautiful rusty burgundy red color. And again, the tonal, I mean, just like, oh, it's so good. Her tonals, I cannot say enough about the dyeing that Lauren is doing. Lauren is the maker behind Treehouse Knits. Cannot say enough good things about the color. It is so dynamic and rich and deep and multifaceted. It almost glows. Like there's this glowing quality to the colors in her yarn. And it's so good. And I got a sweater's quantity of it in the 2-ply fingering, which is just an 80-20, and then in the Surrey lace as well. And on here, this is a little bit more orange. Yeah. It's a little bit more orange than the fingering. but I think this is so beautiful. I don't have any idea what I'm going to use these for. And I actually had the idea of doing 2 separate projects because I love this color and I love this color. And I think if I put them together, I don't know. I'll swatch and see. But I ordered a sweater's quantity of both of those as well. So that was my Treehouse Knits haul. And she did a second pre-order. And
yeah, hope you're having a good day. Want to go for a walk?
Sorry, that was my Google telling me that I need to go for a walk. But I did order some more of I think I did mohair. Yeah, I think I did mohair in her second pre-order, and I ordered a couple of darker colors. She also had really like bright, vibrant, heavily speckled colors that are very reminiscent of cocoa. If you think of the color palette of cocoa, every color is represented. She had really beautiful pinks. I'm not a big pink person. She had really, really beautiful pinks. Cocoa shawl was absolutely beautiful. She had the shade Remember Me, which is beautiful. She had like a really deep purple, a really deep blue, beautiful colors. I don't even remember what I ordered in the second pre-order, but I definitely did a couple of more jewel tones, and I think I did one of the speckled yarns as well. So that is, if you haven't bought her yarn, if you weren't able to get any of the cocoa pre-order, she has some in-stock colors. I highly, highly recommend ordering from her. She is so sweet. We chat back and forth on Instagram from time to time. She's such a sweet person. She has an amazing color sense. Her other colors, not from the Cocoa collection, are amazing. And she's already talking about new ideas that she has. So she is a dyer that I will now be like regularly ordering yarn from, because I think that what she does is absolutely beautiful. And I'm excited to see if I can make Alabrije work for a magnolia bloom, because I think it will just be such a stunning sweater. And I'm trying to think if I have anything else. I think that's it. I have a couple of other projects that I have started thinking about for 2022. What is time? Time is such a weird concept. But I think what I'm going to do for my next video is show a couple of the projects that I'm planning to cast on for 2022, and for the ones that I already have the yarn, show you the yarn that I'm thinking about using. I have been just doing a lot of reflecting on what I want my knitting to look like next year, and not really setting goals, but I guess setting goals, being really intentional about what I knit and how I spend my time. And I'm just continuing to reflect on what it means to just be a part of the knitting community, and kind of the expectations that we place on ourselves and the comparisons that we make to other people. And I think for a little bit this year that kind of stole my joy from knitting, because I put myself out there as a podcaster and started sharing my knitting on Instagram. And I think that when you are more open and more public with the things that you're passionate about, you do also open yourself up to critique and to criticism and to expectations. And I know that I personally struggled a little bit with managing those expectations for what people expressed that they wanted from me and from my channel and from my knitting, and what I should do and what I shouldn't be doing. And that was just a lot to kind of take in. But I've reflected on it, I've thought about it, I've unpacked all of the feelings around why those things bothered me, or why I was open to some people's feedback and not to other people's feedback. And now I'm ready to just start thinking about what I want my knitting to look like for me going forward. And so I think in the next episode I will share progress updates and all of those other things. But I think I really just want to do not necessarily a recap, but a forecast for 2022 in terms of the types of projects that I'm finding myself drawn to, thinking about, continuing to think about and explore what it means to be quote unquote prolific in my knitting, and sort of setting my boundaries and expectations for knitting, for what I share, what I don't share, and for yeah. So, yeah, that's it for today. That's all I have to share. Hopefully this episode is not insanely long and you've enjoyed it. I, as always, will have everything that I've talked about linked below. I will link to patterns, to yarns, to dye, or anything that I mentioned, I will link below. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to keep up with what I'm knitting and my random musings, then please click the subscribe button and the notification bell. I don't have a regular uploading schedule, so clicking on the notification bell will help to notify you when I do upload a new video. You can also follow me on Instagram. I am at Phylena Knits. I will have that linked below as well. If you want more real-time updates on the projects that I'm working on, the yarn that I'm buying, and where I'm knitting, because I often knit in public, and so I share that on Instagram as well. And in the meantime, I hope that everybody is staying safe. If you are going to be spending time with family in the upcoming weeks and month, I hope that you have safe travels, that you enjoy your time with your family, and I will talk to you later. All right, bye.